Hello friends, this video on dual nature of radiation and matter part 4 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Please make sure that you have watched all the videos till part 3 before going ahead with part 4. Let us first talk about photoelectric effect. What is photoelectric effect? How photoelectric effect came into picture, and then we will talk about how wave theory was not been able to explain the phenomenon of photoelectric effect. Because see, till now we were talking about electrons. Now you understand why did we talk about electrons? Because we started with electrons and then we reached to photoelectric effect. If I had not told you about electrons, I would have not told you about electron emission. And photoelectric effect is nothing but it is a process of electron emission, right? So this is the only process of electron emission which involved light, which involved radiation, and in this lesson we are talking about radiation. So let us talk about photoelectric effect. So how was this effect born? So who was the first one to observe this phenomenon of photoelectric effect? Well, there was a famous scientist, all of you know his name, Hertz, who did lots of experiments even in electromagnetic waves. Hertz has performed, he has his contributions in many different spheres in science. So electromagnetic waves is one of the important aspect which was studied by Hertz. Now, when Hertz was doing his experiments and research for producing electromagnetic waves, he was actually trying to produce electromagnetic waves by spark discharge. Now, while doing this experimentation, or while during his research on electromagnetic waves, he was the first one to observe this phenomenon of photoelectric effect. But that time, he observed it, but he never went deep inside it. Actually, what he was doing was something like this. He was trying to produce electromagnetic waves by spark discharge, for which he made an arrangement somewhat like this. He took a metal ring, kept a small gap in between, and at the same time he made another arrangement where he had two plates, two metal rods, and there was a gap for the spark to be produced. He connected it to all the circuit and all. So the spark was produced here. So what he did was, when spark was produced here, as a result of the spark, an induced current was induced in this metal ring. So he told that this is how we can produce electromagnetic waves by spark discharge. So that he was working on these lines. While doing these experiments, he observed that the sparks across the loop was increased or was enhanced when the emitter plate was illuminated by ultraviolet light. The sparks was produced by an emitter plate, right? What is an emitter plate now? Till now we were talking in terms of cathode and anode, right? There is one cathode, there is another anode. So cathode is the one which will emit the electrons. So the electrode which emits electrons is known as emitter, and the electrode which collects the electrons is known as collector. So please be aware of these terminologies because I might use them while explaining things. So in this case, Hertz observed then when he illuminated the emitter plate, that means this was the emitter plate. When he illuminated this with ultraviolet light, when ultraviolet light falls on this, the intensity of the spark increased. The spark which was getting produced, it intensified. What did this show? This shows that when light falls on a metal surface, electrons are getting emitted. That means when you are giving this ultraviolet light, some extra electrons are also getting emitted because of photoelectric effect, and that is why the intensity of the spark is getting increased, or the sparks are getting enhanced. However, Hertz observed this, but he didn't exactly ignore it, but he didn't go deep inside it. He didn't go deep inside and study, okay, how is the spark produced, or how is this effect related to the light which was incident on the metal plate and all. He did not go deep inside it. He just observed it, and he put his observations before everybody. So his observation was high voltage sparks across detector loop were enhanced when the emitter plate was illuminated by ultraviolet light. So Hertz left it there. Thereafter came up A pair of scientists named Hallward and Lenard, somewhere around 1886 to 1902. This was the period when they experimented wholeheartedly on this photoelectric effect. They saw Hertz's observations and they wanted to take it forward. They did more experiments related to this and they arrived at wonderful results. So they were the one who actually experimentally studied photoelectric effect. So what did these two scientists together do? They also took up a similar setup. They took an evacuated glass tube inside which they arranged two electrodes. So this was the emitter and this was the collector. So when ultraviolet rays were allowed to fall on this emitter, or when the emitter was illuminated with this ultraviolet rays, it was seen that electrons were emitted from the emitter. Right? But they studied it little more and they observed that as long as ultraviolet radiations were allowed to fall on the emitter plate, the electron emission took place. Now, because of this electron emission, when flow of electron takes place, there is current. That is how we define current, right? What is current? Current is nothing but flow of electrons. So when ultraviolet light rays fall on the emitter plate, electrons are emitted, right? Because of this electron emission or the flow of electrons from emitter to collector, there is a current flow. But it was also observed that when we stop the ultraviolet radiations to fall on the emitter plate, the current flow stops. So that means the electron emission is taking place only when the light is allowed to fall on the emitter. So now these scientists became more interested to know how this current varied with the intensity and the frequency of the incident light. This means that the current which is flowing here and this current which is flowing here was termed as photocurrent. They call it photocurrent. Why they call it photocurrent? Because this current was due to the light which is falling on this. This light resulted in the flow of these electrons and therefore this current was constituted. So they call this current as photocurrent. So they wanted to know how this photocurrent changes if they change the intensity of the incident light or if they change the frequency of the incident light. So they were interested in that. So they went deep inside it and studied all these things. Also, to confirm, they experimented it with a zinc plate. So they did a small experiment with a zinc plate. So what did they do? They took a negatively charged zinc plate. They took a negatively charged zinc plate and allowed ultraviolet rays to fall on it. So what happened when ultraviolet rays fell on it? This negatively charged zinc plate became neutral. This negatively charged zinc plate became neutral. So now what they did, they again made ultraviolet rays fall on this neutral zinc plate. What happened after that? The zinc plate became positively charged. So this clearly showed that when ultraviolet rays fall on a metal plate, it emits electrons because first it had negatively charged means it had more electrons. Then it became neutral. That means the extra electrons which he had, all those electrons went out. So now it has equal number of electrons and equal number of protons. So now it is neutral. Again when ultraviolet ray fell on it, the electrons went off again. So now it is left only with more protons. Therefore now it has acquired a positive charge. So this clearly showed that the charged particles which are emitted are negatively charged electrons, right? So they just performed this experiment for their confirmation. And they also observed, now when they did this experimentation, when they did this small experimentation with the emitter and collector, they saw that this photocurrent below a certain frequency of the incident light, there was no emission taking place. As I told you, if you do not at all subjected to ultraviolet radiation, no emission takes place. Again, when you subject it to ultraviolet radiation, no emission takes place for some time, but after some time the emission starts taking place. So that means only above a certain frequency of the incident light, the electron emission was actually taking place. So they got a hint that photocurrent is related to the frequency of the incident light. So that is why they became even more interested to know whether the photocurrent also depended on the intensity of the incident light. So Hallward and Lenard took it even more forward, and then photoelectric effect, at least they were the ones who could define, who could tell that, okay, this is a phenomenon which exists. And then they went deep inside it. They experimentally studied photoelectric effect. They were able to study how the photocurrent changed with intensity, how photocurrent changes with frequency, how photocurrent changes with change in potential difference between the emitter and the collector plate. So they studied all those things. So we will also see what all they studied. Before that, we will look at their conclusion of the first half. I mean, till now, whatever they experimented, the conclusion was that incident light causes electrons to move out of the metal surface. Correct? No electron emission takes place when the incident light is at a frequency lesser than a particular value. So this limiting value was known as the threshold frequency. So the threshold frequency was the frequency above which photoelectric emission started. Below this frequency, there was no photoelectric emission. So Hallward and Lenard defined this term threshold frequency. Threshold frequency depends on nature and material of the emitter plate. That is very true, because on what factors the threshold frequency will depend. Just before some time, I was talking about electron emission. I was telling that for electron emission to take place, you will have to provide energy which is enough to overcome the work function of the metal. Now, the work function of every metal will be different. So that means the amount of energy which you need to provide, that has to be different. That means the amount of energy which light has to provide. In this case, who is providing that energy? Light is providing that energy, right? So the amount of energy which light has to provide, that has to be different. The energy which light provides in turn depends on the frequency of the light. Therefore, the amount of frequency which light has to provide so that the electron emission can take place, right, that will change. So when that changes, your threshold frequency changes. That is the minimum frequency which is needed in order for photoelectric emission to take place. So it will vary from metal to metal because it depends on the configuration of the metals. For example, if we talk about sodium, magnesium, lithium, zinc, they all have different electronic configurations. Just before some time, I took these examples, right? In case of sodium, you have 1 valence electrons, whereas in case of magnesium, you have 2 valence electrons. Now, for sodium, you need lesser energy to pull that electron out of sodium, whereas in case of magnesium, you need more energy to pull that energy out. So what do you think? The threshold frequency will be same for sodium and magnesium? No, it will be not. In case of sodium, the threshold frequency will be lesser because you really don't need to give that much of frequency and that much of energy, right? So that means in case of sodium, the threshold frequency will be lesser, whereas in case of magnesium, it would be more. So depending upon the electronic configurations of different materials, because the emitter plate is nothing but a metal plate. It is made up of some metal. Either it is a sodium plate or a magnesium plate or a zinc plate. So it has to be made up of some metal. Now, depending upon the properties of that metal, which is again determined by the electronic configuration of that metal, we will know what will be the threshold frequency of that metal, right? Or what would be the work function of that metal. So now you understand how work function and how threshold frequency, they are all related. Okay. Thank you. Please visit examfear.com to watch free educational videos, try free online tests, get the best quality study materials, study from the best tutors and mentors, and much more. Thank you once again.